everybody, welcome back to the Seeds of Success podcast. I'm your first host, Aiden Manley, and today we are so excited to host a leader in agriculture to talk about their journey through FFA. That is how I get to open up the podcast that I founded with my friend Colton Rudd, where I get to express my passion for agricultural education and advocate for it. We've been able to interview leaders from all across the state and country. Let's take a step back into my freshman year. I never would have imagined that as a senior, I would be hosting a podcast and advocating for agricultural education. In 9th grade, my agriculture teacher, Mr. Cash, tried to give me opportunities to be involved, but I turned most down. As a matter of fact, I didn't even attend my chapter Green Hand degree ceremony. I didn't see myself in this organization until one day Mr. Cash asked me to go to FFA camp. On a whim, needing something to do in the summer, I said yes. At camp, I met members from all across the state who talked about the self-growth they were experiencing through opportunities like public speaking, career development competitions, and conferences in FFA. My time at camp taught me what it means to be a leader and the best version of myself. What really stood out is how thankful many members were for their agriculture teacher investing in them and being a role model. From then on, I took every opportunity that Mr. Cash offered, and I gained a role model and a mentor who I would not be the same without. He helped me to grow as a servant leader and equipped me with skills to take into my own career in agriculture. Society needs more male role models like my advisor to teach agriculture because the number of men in agricultural education is declining. A recent study done at Pew Research Center showed that from 1980 to 2018, men sharing jobs requiring critical thinking, social, and managerial skills has dropped. This could be directly related to the decreasing number of men pursuing post-secondary education each year. Young men are losing college-educated male role models, which in turn impacts their academic engagement and college plans. In 2024, 33 new agriculture teachers started in Kentucky, but only 9 were men. In addition, only 21% of agricultural education graduates were males. Could this mean that less male agriculture teachers leads to less males deciding to take on leadership roles and work in agriculture? We are facing a major shortage of agriculture teachers today. Therefore, it is imperative that all students can see themselves in their agricultural education teachers and feel represented in the classroom. Building relationships with students puts teachers in a position to recruit students to use their skills in agriculture. Research done in Missouri on male agricultural education students found that their choice to pursue that career was largely based on the advice of their FFA advisors. Simultaneously, according to Stanford University in 2006, students are much more engaged when they are taught by a same-gender teacher. Agriculture teachers are uniquely positioned to form closer relationships and have a greater impact on students. This is because they can develop us beyond the classroom with things like supervised agricultural experiences, camps, trips, and competitions. From my own personal experience, I can attest to the influence teachers have. Students are very likely to enter an agricultural career if their teacher builds a relationship with them. Perhaps your agriculture teacher is a reason why you are here giving back today. More male agriculture teachers to mentor students is the solution. Research shows that students greatly benefit from forming relationships with mentors they see as similar to themselves. In fact, these relationships can be crucial for a student's overall development and career choice. Research done at U.S. Military Academy West Point showed a direct correlation between same-sex mentors and career direction. Taking this research into consideration, we can assume that more male teachers lead to more males pursuing leadership positions and careers in agriculture. To attain more male leadership, involvement, and demographic balance in agriculture, we need more men to teach agriculture by mentoring them in that direction. What does mentorship mean to you? According to the Institute of Broadening Participation, mentorship is giving your time, attention, insights, and advice. Mentorship is about helping a mentee develop social capital within an environment where they have all the resources and support they need to develop their technical and intellectual capital. Who has been a mentor in your life? Mr. Cash has been one for me by giving me a seat at the table. In August at the state fair, he introduced me to leaders from all across the state, including the Commissioner of Agriculture, to interview for my podcast. In September, he set me up to have lunch with and discuss career and technical education with a state senator. Every week, Mr. Cash dedicates time, attention, insights, and advice to help me grow and give me a seat at the table. Developing personal relationships is key. Simply having one-on-one discussions with students sets up an opportunity to talk about their future and become a mentor. The research and my story point towards these steps, not only developing more male involvement in agriculture, but changing lives for the better. Although this episode is coming to a close, think about how you can sow seeds of success in students by leading them towards a career in agricultural education. There's no doubt that the representation of men in agricultural education has dropped. We need high-quality teachers that all students can see themselves in, regardless of if they are male or female. Personally, I never saw myself as becoming an advocate for agricultural education until I had a teacher who made a difference in my life. Now, this is my life, and I plan to pursue a career in agricultural education to be part of the solution. Today, I look back and realize that Mr. Cash just wanted to plant a seed for me to grow, just like so many other agriculture teachers do by mentoring their students. I hope to give students the same opportunities. Whether it's through my podcast or welcoming students into my very own classroom on my first day as an agriculture teacher, I hope to be a mentor. And I hope to be a role model. A role model who helps students to grow as a servant leader and gain skills to take with them into their own career in agriculture. Agriculture teachers are the solution. We need agriculture teachers, and we need mentors. We need more male agriculture teachers to mentor male students. In the wise words of my ag teacher, this job will never leave you unfulfilled because you get to watch the real impact you leave on students. Thank you.
Thank you, Aiden. What is your favorite episode of the podcast that you've put on so far, and why?
That is a very difficult one. I've been blessed to host a lot of leaders with my friend Colton Rudd, but I would have to say my favorite would be with Mr. Matt Colliff and Mr. Kristen Wright and the state staff here at Kentucky FFA. They gave a lot of insights about issues facing agriculture teachers, which is something that is near and dear to my heart. I'm very interested in that subject because I want to go into agricultural education in the future. They actually helped develop this speech through those interview podcasts, talking about those issues that are facing Kentucky FFA and agriculture teachers and how to advocate for those issues. So those really played a big impact on me. I've left those episodes feeling very fulfilled and like I gained a lot of information. So it was a blessing to be able to interview them, talk to them about these subjects to increase my knowledge.
What other kind of barriers as an FFA teacher that you might have at your school or somebody new that's coming in that might keep them from being able to be as much of a mentor? What are there barriers that might be set by schools, by society, by family structures that might limit some of the ability that people are facing now to be the kind of mentor that you're hoping people should be?
Yes, absolutely. There are barriers that can keep people from becoming those mentors, whether it's by societal norms. Like, for example, you don't typically see a female being a male mentor. They absolutely can be. There's no issue with that, but it's not as common. And science says that males are more drawn to male mentors and females are more drawn to female mentors. And in my school, I've been blessed to have two agriculture teachers, Mr. Cash and Miss Lane. And I even see that pattern in my own school. I see males being drawn to Mr. Cash for advice and females that are more comfortable around Miss Lane, her advice and her mentorship. So those things can be really two big barriers, but we have to overcome those by just realizing that we all want a welcome space, that any teacher can create that welcoming space, and it just takes building those relationships, talking to students about their future, and making them feel like they have a home no matter where they're at.
Aiden, thinking about mentors, junior or senior?
I'm a senior.
Okay. So you're obviously older than a freshman coming
Yes,
into
sir.
your chapter, right? So how has Mr. Cash instilled leadership and mentorship in you, and are you doing that already to other males in your chapter? Because obviously it's noble and great that you want to be a mentor going forward, but are you doing it right now in your chapter there in Menifee County?
Yes, sir. I try my best to be a mentor for younger students all the time, and the values that Mr. Cash instilled in me is first, engaging and building relationships every opportunity you have. Be a listener, make people feel like they matter and that you care for them truly. And then talk to them about their future, build their confidence up and make them feel like they have a place to go. I'll give you a specific story. One of my best friends, Patrick Abney, he's a year younger than me. And just a few years ago, he wasn't really involved in FFA, but we talked together in the lunch line. He knew that I was involved, and he talked to me about how he wasn't really confident in becoming an FFA officer. He didn't see himself, but I took that opportunity to listen to Patrick, let him know that I care, to build his confidence up, to talk to him about how I grew through FFA, how we all have a starting spot. Patrick this past year was elected as our chapter secretary. He's here at State Convention today, and it was just a blessing to be able to see that I was used to help someone have confidence and find themselves in FFA to be a mentor and a role model for them. Thank you, guys.
One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Every 5 seconds, a child dies of hunger-related causes. In just 1 year, a mere 365 days, 9 million people lose their lives to starvation. These startling statistics show the reality that food deprivation is one of our world's largest threats. As we take a step back to feel the full weight of these numbers, we must ask ourselves, what are we doing to fight against world hunger? And how are we actively rewriting the narrative of a global food crisis? To fully grasp the scope of this challenge, we must first understand the definition. As defined by IGI Global, a global food crisis is a widespread scarcity of food in a society. It's usually caused by numerous factors, such as crop failure, population explosion, governmental policies, and an inaction in terms of food production. These crises usually result in hunger, starvation, and malnutrition in a society. Grasping this definition is only the first step. The true challenge is the overwhelming weight placed on those responsible for feeding the world. Agriculturists are expected to meet the demands of a growing population, as if the weight of this crisis was never added. Join me as we discuss the cause, effects, and steps we must take to address this crisis. Now let's connect the dots. When climate change affects agriculture, it's not just the crops that bear the burden. It's our entire communities, our economy, and inevitably what ends up on our dinner tables. What starts in the field with floods and droughts triggers a chain reaction, disrupting the very systems we rely on to grow, distribute, and produce food. Intensified natural disasters, such as droughts, floods, and wildfires, have decreased global farming productivity by 21% in the last 60 years. This is equivalent to losing approximately 7 years of global farming productivity. This cascade of setbacks directly leads to economic instability and rising costs for consumers. Due to this, grocery store prices have risen up 13.5% in recent years, making many families being pushed into food insecurity. According to Cameron McNair with the CNBC, as of the third quarter of 2024, nearly half of Americans reported living paycheck to paycheck. Meanwhile, farmers are also feeling the weight of this burden with skyrocketing expenses for feed, seed, and equipment costs. According to the USDA farm expenditures data, since 2013, nearly all farm expenses have gone up 50%. So whether it's the effects of climate change on our country or economic instability on families, this burden is felt by families all around the world. Now, the next step in addressing this crisis is how it affects the people around us. The World Food Program states that regions such as Gaza, Sudan, and Haiti are teetering on the brink of famine. The organization goes on to highlight that nearly 1.9 million people are currently enduring catastrophic hunger globally due to factors we just discussed. But it doesn't just stop there. It ripples across borders, affecting the very regions we live in today. In the United States, many struggling communities are labeled as food deserts. A food desert, as defined by Medical News Today, are regions where healthy and affordable food are often out of reach. Due to this, many families are being forced to rely on convenience stores and/or fast food, being pushed into malnutrition and/or obesity, a cruel irony for those who can't afford better. Hunger knows no bounds, and it's demanding active action today. So now that we've discussed the cause and effects of this crisis, what can we, as agriculturists, industry leaders, and modern Americans do to help stop and end it? One of the most important steps we can take in addressing this crisis is to begin building resilience to climate change. By implementing more sustainable farming practices, such as crop diversification, regenerative agriculture, and investing in water management, we can begin building resilience to climate change and helping production agriculture every single day. Additionally, reducing in food waste and food loss is crucial in solving this crisis. The World Food Program states that the world produces more than enough food to feed everyone. Yet, 828 million people are still go to bed hungry every single night. It is both sad and disappointing that in high-income countries such as the United States, nearly 40% of all food is wasted because people buy more than they can consume. As agriculturists, we have the unique opportunity to minimize waste throughout the entire food supply chain, from the farm to distribution networks to consumer behavior. Let us advocate for the food we produce so it ends up with the people who need it most and filling the empty stomachs of the children worldwide. Again, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In that time, statistics say you just made roughly 4 decisions, conscious or not. Was one of these to start battling the global hunger crisis that is causing millions of deaths per year? Strengthening our global food system requires innovation. It requires active action. Our current food crisis may loom on the horizon, but we must assess the cause, effects, and steps we must take to address this. As fellow agriculturists, you are given the choice to be the voice of agriculture. Today, we are charged with ensuring a better tomorrow. So, the choice is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. In your speech, you talked about how things are happening in your community. Name a way that you or someone in your community are helping combat this.
Absolutely. So, as I talked about, food deserts is super important to my heart because my school is in a community labeled as a food desert, Hardin, Kentucky. And when I was a freshman in high school, my ag teacher told me what it was. And at that moment, I realized we've got to do something to change this because the only convenience store in that area is a Dollar General. And we all know there's no healthy way to eat at a Dollar General. So at that time, my school and the other kids in my class decided that we wanted to have a greenhouse to start making produce more able for people all around our community. So it took 4 years, but I can officially say that this year we got a greenhouse and a community garden where we can start giving out produce to the people all around my community. With that, we've been able to donate a fresh tomato to our local church who hands that out every Wednesday night to start making fresh food on, if that's as simple as a sandwich on an afternoon day, or if that's to begin taking the first steps in combating malnutrition in our community. So for me, it may be as small as starting a community garden, but on the larger scale, that one small step is what it takes to begin standing up to world hunger.
Thanks, Caroline. Thinking about this, if you had the opportunity to put people at a table to help solve this issue, what careers, what type of people, who would you put at the table to help solve this current issue?
absolutely love that question because I think that oftentimes we may think that we just need to put a small group of people to help this issue. But I think it's bigger than that. I think it's bigger than just agriculture. I think it starts at the large scale with the people at the beginning of our government, if that's our president, if that's the people under him. It starts with building up resilience to world hunger because it's a huge issue. But I also think that it starts with the small farmers. Even in my own community, my grandfather is taking the time to make produce for our community. So that way, even in small places, we can begin building resilience to that. So I think I would love to have small farmers at a table with the governmental people so that way they can build together what would be our next step in our community. Because it takes every single mind uniquely developed to help build up resilience. Because we can't just have one type of people. We need to have all different types of people. So that's how I would answer that question.
Are you aware of any programs helping to minimize food waste? As you said, it's 40% approximately of the food that is wasted that's produced, which is basically wasting your resources as well to everything that went into that 40%. Is there anything that you're aware of that's being done to help minimize that?
So from what I'm aware of in my research, the 4-H Extension Agency and whatnot has been trying to help people recognize how much waste we consume, because most of the time we don't even recognize it. I'm a victim to that. I'll buy more produce at the grocery store than I even need. But I think it starts with communities just like that, with the 4-H Extension is the one I know of, that's helping people try to explain to not waste as much food. But I do think that we can start more cooperations that would help recognize that with people. Because I think if people understand how much food we actually waste, they'll begin to realize, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. So I think it starts with every single person taking on the task of making more with the amount of food we have instead of buying more than what we think.
Five is how many generations of my family have lived on the same farm out on Coffee Road in Nancy, Kentucky. In 1937, my great-grandpa Homer and his father Willis first bought the farm. 2 years later, my papa Gale was born and spent his entire life on that farm. Fast forward to 1998, and my parents got the opportunity to buy our farm off of Papa and his siblings. Our farm has been in my family for 87 years, for close to 9 decades. My papa has the comfort of knowing the farm that he grew up on is now home to a new generation of his family. The work that he and his former generations had put into the land is being passed down just like their farm. The unfortunate reality is, unlike my papa's, the majority of farms in the U.S. do not meet the same ending. Farmers are left not knowing the future of the farms they put so much of their lives into. In a constantly changing industry, having a plan for the future is vital. 87 years of one family living on the same patch of land does not happen without a lot of hard work, determination, and thoughtful planning. As I'm sure everyone in the agriculture industry would tell you, money is not the only reason we become farmers. The connection that farming gives us to our past is one of the biggest things that keeps us going out to chop ice from water troughs winter after winter. Farming is a practice that uses passed down traditions and knowledge, keeping us connected to past generations. Along with our connection to the past, which drives us to keep farming, is our hope that the next generation will continue that legacy. The older generation hopes that the younger generation will want to come back to the farm, and the younger generation often has to hope they will be able to. Although without a set plan, there's no guarantee that this hope will ever reach reality. A study cited by the Agriculture and Applied Economic Association found that out of 1.3 million farming families in the 21st century, only around 1/5 of farmers had their farms passed down to their children. This is only 260,000 farms. This means that 1,040,000 farms are being urbanized or sold to outside buyers for projects like subdivisions or different commercial properties. The legacy that those farmers had built and hoped to continue ends. Farming is a constantly changing ordeal. So choosing to plan for the future is one of the most impactful decisions a farm family can make. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Census of Agriculture, over the last 20 years, over 1.4 million acres of farmland in Kentucky has been lost. This correlates with the loss of around 17,000 farmers. This large loss of farmers and farmland has led to organizations like the Kentucky Farm Bureau, the American Farmland Trust, and the University of Kentucky Cooperative Extension, among others, to have discussions and develop solutions to try and address this issue. The loss in farms has put a focus on the importance of succession planning with farmers. All three of these organizations previously mentioned offer succession planning guides and services to farmers. Farm Bureau, for example, has hosted estate planning informational sessions over the last few years and offers planning services to its members. The American Farmland Trust has a program called Land Transfer Navigators, whose mission is to help farmers transition their farms into the next generation. The University of Kentucky Cooperative Extension guides farmers in the community into making a plan for their farms. All three of these organizations, and others, are providing farmers with the necessary tools for succeeding their farms and securing their legacies. So how does one go about creating their succession plan? How do we make sure that our farms are continued into the next generation? With the countless agencies and consultants, it's actually quite easy. Farmers today have easy access to help deciding the plan for their farms. They also have access to different routes of planning. The biggest ways are through wills and various trusts. The most common is creating a will. A will is a legal document containing the instructions for what is to be done with someone's money and property after their death. Farmers can use this to plan their farm's succession. The farmer has the freedom to decide what happens to their farms. They get the liberties of deciding who their farm is given to and what is to be done with it. Another option for farmers is investing in different trusts. An inheritors trust, for example, protects and manages what is passed down. Its biggest advantage is the protections of one's assets. It is enticing to farmers because it protects their farm for the next generation. Another kind of trust is a living trust, which allows a successor to inherit and manage your estate or farm if you are not able to, while you still receive the benefits from it. This cuts down on a majority of complicated legal issues that arise through inheritance. Though these trusts are revocable, there are also irrevocable trusts. These irrevocable trusts can be made near death and they can have many restrictions. All three of these trusts can be enticing to farmers, although 97% of farms in the U.S. are family owned. Only 30% are succeeded to the next generation. With only 30% of farms being passed to the next generation, succession planning is crucial to ensure that these legacies continue. It is vital for farmers to get in touch with a local estate planning attorney to set up these wills or trusts. For many people, their farm has a lot to do with their legacy. And if as family they decide that they want that legacy to continue, thoughtful planning is required along with hard work and determination. Agriculture is a constantly evolving industry. Within its constant growth, measures to ensure the evolution and continuation of farms need to be taken. Although it can often seem redundant and a waste of time, succession planning is the best way to ensure the preservation of a legacy. Not all farms are like my great-grandpa Homer's. Making plans and having conversations are needed. Having the difficult conversations is part of what it takes to keep a farm in the same family for 87 years. And if American agriculture is going to be sustainable into the future, it is one we must have. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. In your family, you've talked about the legacy and how your family is continuing to pass the farm down. What method has your family used to make sure that succession planning is being done, and has it gone on to your generation at this point?
So my family farm does not have a set-in-stone succession plan. And that was actually one of the biggest reasons why I decided to write a speech about this topic, because it is so important, and it is very important to small farms like my own in Pulaski County. And so, although we do not have a set plan, there are interests in continuing the farm and continuing that legacy that has been built over 87 years. And so my older brother, Jared, has a big interest in continuing the dairy operation, while me and my other brother also have interest in continuing the farm. He has kind of taken a lead role in continuing our operation into the future.
Good morning. When you look at succession plans, for farms or for any kind of property, there are obviously tax consequences that present themselves. Are these trust vehicles good answers to some of those problems that are created?
So these trusts can be in certain ways, and there was actually a law passed at the legislative level by Kentucky's very own Mitch McConnell. He recently passed a bill that stated that retiring farmers could avoid these taxes by succeeding their farms to a buyer, as long as that buyer continued to use it for agricultural land for the next 10 years. And so as farmers are getting older, they're thinking about selling their farms, and so this law allows them to make these trusts or put it into a will that they can avoid those tax burdens that often come along with succeeding farms.
Julie, when thinking about the differing farmers across the state, there's some farmers that maybe don't have kids, or there's other families where the kids go off and they're successful in their career and they don't want to come back home to farm. So what solutions or what ideas or what conversations would you have with those farmers as far as they want to keep their land and ag production? How do they do that through succession planning, and how do they connect with others who may be interested?
So one of the biggest things that go along with succession planning is that we often think the inheritor has to be part of your family or your own child, and that's not always the case. Wills and trusts can be given to inheritors that are outside of the family, and so that would be one of the biggest solutions that I would have with some of these farms whose children are not very interested in continuing the farm, or they don't have any children. I would ask them to look at some outside buyers or inheritors that they may have, friends of the farm, people who are in a similar agricultural field who can continue their operation on their farm. Thank you.
On May the 3rd, 2025, 20 of the world's best thoroughbreds took their shot at the most prestigious horse race in the world, the Kentucky Derby. These horses, most of which cost millions of dollars, were bred for this moment. From the second they touch the ground, they have been trained to run on the track like their life depends on it. And in most cases, it does. Every breeder, owner, buyer, and barn wants nothing more than for their horse to cross the finish line first. And some will stop at nothing to get there. But is all the fame, money, and prestige worth all the peril? The secret, and not so secret, parts of horse racing have been a hot topic of discussion amongst animal rights activists for a while now, but most people tend to just sweep it under the rug. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into the side of horse racing that never quite seems to make the headlines. Hi, my name is Catherine Kidd, and I'm from Muhlenberg County, Kentucky. Kentucky is known for its thoroughbreds, and being the horse-crazy kid I was, I became obsessed with learning everything I could about the riding, training, development, and care of hunter, jumper, and equitation sport horses. Horses alone made up 87% of operating expenses in the state of Kentucky. But is this really an ethical industry we should be supporting? Today, we're going to cover some topics such as the physical strain racing takes on the horse, drugging, and the lives of horses after the track. Some of these topics may be difficult or hard to hear, but it is imperative that they be discussed. The first topic we're going to cover today is the physical strain that racing takes on the horse. No horse reaches full skeletal maturity until at least 6 years old, while some might not reach that point until closer to 8 years of age. It's recommended that a horse doesn't start heavy under saddle work until skeletal maturity due to the immature and fragile bones and ligaments in their backs and legs. Although it hasn't been studied heavily, it's believed that riding a horse too early can cause lodorosis. Lodorosis, also known as swayback, is a curve or dip in the spine starting after the withers. The ligaments in the spine take time to develop, and riding a horse too early can cause them to stretch and loosen, increasing a horse's risk for lodorosis. Horses with lodorosis are also increasingly more likely to contract kissing spine. Kissing spine is an incredibly painful disease rampant amongst thoroughbreds in which two or more vertebrae overlap and rub together. This risk is greatly reduced if you wait until skeletal maturity to start heavy undersaddle work, but most racehorses start this rigorous training anywhere from only 12 to 24 months of age. Other stress-related injuries are anything but uncommon for these horses. An estimated 700 to 800 racehorses are injured fatally each year, and a whopping 36% of racehorse retirements are due to injury. In 2008, 8 Bells broke down less than 1 furlong after the conclusion of the Kentucky Derby. She suffered compound fractures in both of her front ankles, and she was immediately restrained and euthanized on the track in front of thousands of onlookers. But an injury can keep a horse from racing, even if it isn't fatal like it was in 8 Bells' case. A small ligament injury can take months to heal, keeping a horse from racing for an entire season. Because of this, drugging is extremely common in the horse racing industry, and it's not illegal. With hundreds upon thousands or millions of dollars at stake, some trainers will do anything to give their horse a temporary edge, even if it's to the detriment of the animal's health. The U.S. Racing and Testing Commission currently lists 30 approved drugs for horse racing. This list includes pain relievers, muscle relaxers, and sedatives. Nearly all racehorses take 2 of the most common approved drugs, Lasix and phenylbutazone, also known as Bute. Lasix is a brand name for furosemide. It decreases pulmonary hemorrhage, reduces heart rate, but increases blood flow. However, Lasix is a diuretic, meaning that some horses will drop up to 30 pounds of liquid water weight before a race. Phenylbutazone, or Bute, is like an extremely strong Tylenol for horses, masking extreme signs of illness, inflammation, and pain for periods of time. Other drugs such as anabolic steroids, etomorphines, narcotic analgesics, caffeine, beta blockers, bicarb, butazolidine, and propylethylene bromide are some more drugs that have come up over time. Though some I mentioned are legal and some are not, they can be used for anything from masking signs of illness, inflammation, and pain to even manipulating the time a racehorse can sustain their top sprinting speeds. One drug I mentioned, propylethylene bromide, is banned in the International Federation for Equestrian Sports, also known as FEI. However, in racing, it's a legal drug that in large quantities removes the lactic acid that's expelled with muscle usage. Because of this, a racehorse won't recognize fatigue and will hold their top sprinting speeds for dangerously long periods of time, sometimes ending in cardiac failure. It's not uncommon for a racehorse to be administered up to 600 grams of propylethylene bromide in one dose. That's the same as you or me taking 1,864 extra strength Tylenol tablets. Although drugging is completely legal in training, it's supposed to be illegal within a 12-hour period of race day. However, Fred Hudson, a veteran trainer, founder, and CEO of the U.S. Racing Alumni Association, told the New York Post that an obvious 40 to 60% of horses are being doped on race day. The drugs most likely being used are designer drugs or drugs that are specially formulated not to show up on tests. So this means no one really knows what's in them besides the person formulating and maybe the person administering them. We've spent some time talking about what happens to these horses while they're on the track, but what about what happens after? The lucky horses, the ones with profitable careers or bloodlines, will be sent to stud facilities where they're treated like kings. Barns like Coolmore, Godolphin, and Spendthrift right here in Lexington, Kentucky, house some of the most expensive horses in the nation. They stay in clean, well-managed, top-notch facilities where they're bred in hopes of producing the next top racers. Other horses, the ones with kind owners or potential in other areas, might be sent to a thoroughbred rehoming facility where they'll be retrained and then resold to what they hope is a forever home. Programs like TBSH Cares and New Vocations Horse Adoptions retrain and rehome hundreds of thoroughbreds each year, giving these horses a second chance at life. However, most racehorses born into the United States racing industry don't end up with this fortunate of a future. Of the 20,000 thoroughbred foals born each year in just the United States, it's estimated that the industry will send up to 10,000 to slaughter or slaughter auctions annually. Some of these horses might be bought by kind souls, but that's highly unlikely, as by the time they reach this point, they're either very injured or very sickly. With all these statistics, we now know that a heart-shattering 60% of racehorses born in North America will be killed due to injury, drug overdose, or be sent to slaughter. That means of the 20,000 foals I mentioned are born each year, only an estimated 6,000 will get to live out their lives past the age of 6. The United States racing industry has the potential to be a fantastic economical boost, but we are just not there yet. Important changes need to be made in order to make it safer for our equines. Horses can't talk. They can't tell you when they're sick or hungry or tired, or if they wake up in the morning and just don't feel like doing their job. So it's up to us to be their advocate. I urge you all, do your own research, sign petitions, and fight for the betterment of this industry for our equines. Thank you.
Okay. You've mentioned the drugging of thoroughbreds that occurs on race day. And recently in Kentucky, we did disqualify a very famous trainer, Bob Baffert, for
Yes.
that. What other actions do you think should be taken?
I think that it's really important that we do some time developing new drug tests, because people are getting smarter and the drug tests aren't. So it's important that we develop tests that can keep up with the developing of the designer drugs that's going on in the horse racing industry. I'm actually very familiar with that story, and I think that it's a great thing. I think that if we make a couple examples out of some really important people, then maybe people kind of dig their heels in the dirt and say, hey, well, if he can get in trouble for it, I might get in trouble for it too. And for a lot of these people, I don't want to say all, because for some people the horse is a very big part of racing to them. But for other people, it's a ticket into a country club. It's a payday paycheck, you know? So to maybe threaten that they might get that taken away is something that could really help us move forward in the right direction.
Are there any other standards in the horse racing industry besides the drug issues that could encourage better practices for the welfare of the horses and the sustainability of the sport?
Well, there's a couple. I think that for one, oversaturation is a big problem in the industry. 20,000 horses every year is a lot. And how many of those 20,000 do you know the names of and see on the news? Probably a handful, probably not very many. So I think maybe by limiting the number of times certain stallions can be bred, we can maybe take down that number of horses born every year, which in turn will lead to less horses being sent to places like a slaughterhouse. I also think that maybe we could start racing horses a little later. I'm not saying wait till they're 9 and 10 years old, because what would be the fun in watch your 70-year-old grandma run the 100-meter dash? It wouldn't be very fun. But waiting till they're 5 and 6 years old and giving those ligaments in the spine time to develop could really decrease the risk of injury.
Catherine, having grown up in the horse industry, having raced horses as a child, having adopted retired race horses, I've seen both sides of your speech here. What are you doing, or what groups are working towards bettering the life of horses?
I think that for me, I have been riding horses for a long time. I've been riding the hunters, the jumpers, and the equitation since I was 8 years old, and I became like obsessed. When I started, I fell right into the deep end. And so for me, part of the advocacy for racehorses is showing people that they're more than racehorses. Off-the-track thoroughbreds are some of the smartest, most willing to learn, eager horses you can ever meet. But most people have this idea in their mind, this stigma that they're crazy, that they're not easily trainable, that, oh, well, a racehorse wouldn't make a good hunter or a racehorse wouldn't make a good jumper, and that's just not true. I think that a thoroughbred is one of the most athletic horses out there, and so I think that by advocating for off-the-track thoroughbreds and showing people what a versatile and amazing breed that they are is something that would also really help push us in the right direction.
Thank you, Catherine.